Can you please explain the concept of overlapping senses? Okay. Well, I think this applies in any kind of hypnotherapy, not just Ericksonian. We live in a three-dimensional world, maybe more dimensions that we're aware of, but certainly three dimensions that we're aware of. And this three-dimensional reality is outside ourselves. Well, we believe it's outside ourselves. We're perceiving it as if it is separate from ourselves. So we engage with it externally. And what do we do to experience this three-dimensional reality? Well, we use our senses, of course. So, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, gustatory, olfactory, all of these senses to enjoy this experience of a three-dimensional perceived world. Well, when we overlap senses, what we're doing is we're following the same pattern we normally use in everyday life, but we're doing so in an altered state of awareness that we call hypnotic trance. So when we put a client into hypnosis and we want them to experience something, we want it to be as real as possible. So the way we do this is to build up an internal representation of this three-dimensional world. So let's give you an example. Let's just imagine that you've asked your client to find some very comfortable place where they can relax in their imagination. And so you send them off on a journey to find somewhere that's familiar or maybe somewhere new that is relaxing. Let's say they choose a beach. And that's very common, actually. People like to go on beaches quite often. So imagine they go to a beach. Well, how would you make that beach more real? Well, there are two ways of doing it. One is very, very positive. The other has little dangers associated with it. First of all, the real positive way of doing it is not to describe too much content unless that content is familiar to pretty much anybody who'd be on a beach. So if you're on a beach, you're going to have ocean, right? So there are two components. You've got the ocean and the beach. But let's think about this. The beach may be sandy. It may be shingle. We don't know. We don't know where that beach is. So if you talk about sand all the time and the person's lying on a shingle beach, there's a mismatch. So you don't want to be too specific with the content of the experience. So the way to do this is to talk about what they can see, hear, feel, maybe even smell and taste. Let's include those in this particular analogy. Okay. So they're on the beach. They actually can see the ocean. They can see the waves. Normally that's pretty common. You have waves coming in onto a beach. So you can safely talk about that. So you're talking about the waves coming in on the beach, how the waves come in and they draw out. Now already, can you get a sense of the hypnotic quality of just that part of the description? The waves come in, the waves go out. It's a rhythm. It's very similar to something they're experiencing anyway. They're breathing. Okay, so let's start with the visual experience of seeing the waves going out, coming in. If you time that description with their inhalations and exhalations, then the waves become associated or anchored to their breathing. If you then say that they can go deeper into hypnosis as they watch the waves come out and go out and come in, just watching the waves puts them deeper into trance. And because it's matched to their breathing, so it relaxes their breathing as well. And their breathing is going to relax naturally anyway because they're not doing anything. They're sitting in the chair. So this becomes a hypnotic experience. But let's make this even more three-dimensional for them. They see the waves. But what else can they do? They can hear the waves. So get them to hear. So as they see the waves coming in and as the waves draw back, they can hear the sound of the waves. And you might even say, well, I don't know whether you can hear the difference between the waves coming in and waves coming out. They're now focusing on the difference between the sound of the waves coming in and the waves going out. You see how they're becoming more and more focused on their internal experience in the auditory sense, associating the sound with the image. What else can you do? Okay, well, there's the feeling. Okay, how can you feel the waves? Well, you have to go into the water, don't you? So imagine they kick off their shoes. Okay, they're walking on the beach. They go and just walk into the water so they can feel the waves coming in over their feet. Going out, coming in over their feet. So now they've got the kinesthetic experience. This is just of the waves. We haven't even included the weather, the sunshine, the daytime light or whatever, the sounds around on the beach. We're just focusing at this moment on the waves. Okay, what else can the waves give them? There's the smell of the ocean, right? The smell of the ocean, saltiness. What happens if a wave comes in? It's got spray, the spray of a wave on your face. You can taste the saltiness on your lips. You can introduce that as well. And at that particular point, you sometimes will get a client, you see them licking their lips. They're actually tasting the salt on their lips. You see how we've taken that experience and broken it down into its sensory components and then encouraged it to develop within the client themselves. But then we can move on to other things. There's the sounds around on the beach. What sounds can they hear? Can they hear a boat going across the sea on the horizon? Can they hear children playing somewhere? Can they hear birds in the sky? Can they look up and see those birds? Can they see those children? Can they see that boat? You're bringing the visual auditory here. Okay. What else is there? There's clouds. What are the clouds doing? Maybe there's light, just light, white, fluffy clouds slowly drifting across the sky, slowly. As they go deeper into hypnosis, the slow clouds drifting, taking them deeper into hypnosis. And how are those clouds moving? Well, there's a breeze. And what does a breeze do? You can smell the saltiness of the ocean on the breeze, and the breeze may be on one side of your face. Give them a choice. There can be a breeze on one side of your face. They're now having to think, which side of my face is it? And they're going to feel that experience. You see how you're now building up this wonderful three-dimensional experience of external reality as an internal reality. And when it becomes that real, they then become part of that reality. It's as if they're actually there, which means they are absorbed in that experience. Now, you can do this with any location, of course, as long as you don't contaminate it with your own, your own beach. If you've got, think there's a beach hut there, I know a beach with a beach hut, and you start mentioning a beach hut, and they go, what? There's no beach hut on my beach. Sorry, lost rapport. This is not working. Keep it artfully vague. Keep it based on generalizations that pretty much anybody would have an experience of. Now, of course, you have to think of the context in terms of the person's life past. Let's say they've lived in a part of the world where they've never seen snow. Okay, and I live in Thailand. Nobody sees snow in Thailand. If I've had the experience of taking my in-laws to England one winter and finding them early in the morning dancing in the snow early in the morning because they'd never seen snow before. They're dancing in the garden, feeling the snow. So if you were doing a visualization of this kind where you're taking somebody into this three-dimensional experience and they've never seen snow before, it's not a common experience. So be aware of that. Again, do not contaminate their experience with your own. Just be artfully vague and very general. Excuse me. It's not gin and tonic. It's just water. I'm sorry. For those of you who are hoping to see me slowly get more and more sloshed as I get through this webinar. Okay, so Paul, I hope that you understand this is overlapping the senses. We're overlapping one with the other. Visual with auditory, with kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, if we can, not always appropriate, but to build up an internal representation. I love to do this when I start working with a client. I'm more interested in working with their unconscious mind than their conscious mind. And Erickson used to do this as well. He'd send off the conscious mind somewhere else with some task, something to absorb them. So what I like to do is the same thing. Let's find some special, wonderful, comfortable place. It may be on the countryside. It may be sitting at home in front of a log fire, whatever the client comes up with, not what you come up with. Ask the client to find somewhere. Okay. And then you introduce the generalizations related to that place that's comfortable. You get them to be absorbed in that place, consciously absorbed into that place. So you're taking them out of the external world into the internal world of that place, but tying them up with the activity of being in that place. So you can then separate and start talking to their unconscious mind while they're safely in that special place. This way, they don't interact or don't sabotage, don't have that critical voice of, what's going on? I don't like this is not happening, nothing's working for me, because they're so absorbed in their wonderful special place that you can just get on with the work, talking to the unconscious mind.